Hello, this is Lotus, Art of Sacred Embodiment. So, welcome. All right, friends, here's a question for you. How are you feeling? Are you having any tower moments? And what exactly do I mean by tower moments? Some of you might already know, but when I'm talking about tower moments, I'm talking about those very kind of surprising and deep transformations where literally everything feels disoriented. Everything that's been feels like it's crumbling, and you're not even really sure who you are, what you've been doing, what you're doing next. So I did a video probably a couple weeks ago now having to do with, my life isn't working anymore. I need something a little bit more peaceful. So, that was sort of the version of a transformation process where you have the time, you have the clarity, things are still stable enough, ideally, in that level of maybe a mini quake, in order to start making different choices, in order to clarify what is no longer working, what is now needed, and the steps that you need to do in order to make those shifts. Oftentimes, that's going to be more of a process that can go on for a good period of time. So when I'm talking about tower moments, I'm referring to those moments. Oh, I've got a little caterpillar. Hi, Betty. Yeah, hi. Those moments that seemingly come from out of nowhere, and they throw you for a major loop. You don't really have time to think about it. You don't really have time to even know what is coming, so to speak, or that even you didn't even know what was coming. And we're going to be seeing perhaps more and more of these as the planets change, as we move into 2025, as we move into air and fire as the dominant elements, and as our evolution just continues to speed up as we become more connected to life, source, the divine, and our own soul presence. So this kind of piggybacks maybe a little bit on the Divine Blueprint class that I just did last weekend. And I have a video that I did last week on the Divine Blueprint a little bit, like a little intro. But whenever we are going through a major up-leveling, when there is karma that is just ready to fall away, it's not of our own making. We may not even know what that karma is. We don't really have a lot of choice. These are the tower moments. Life brings us a period of initiation where we are brought perhaps sometimes to our knees to have to sort of do this deeper dive into letting go and surrendering. Surrendering to what? Well, surrendering to our higher self, a deeper knowing, life, the universe, God. It just really depends on how you hold that force that is bigger than you. And I can say I'm in the middle of another tower moment. So I'm in the middle of like my second tower moment. I've had maybe 2.5. One was a little bit on Lionsgate, was a little bit, well, no, it kind of crept up as well, but it was a little different. The beginning of the year, I had a massive tower moment where identity, past karma cleared rapidly, and now I'm going through another tower moment where everything feels like it's crumbling. the REM song, it's the end of the world as we know it. So it's the end of the world as I know it in many ways. Mostly it's internal. And, you know, that's a great line in that song, I think, for a lot of us when we're going through these more dramatic upheaval type shiftings. And because the end of the world that we know it, and when we look at it from that internal place, really what it is that we're being, I'll say, either challenged or invited, however you choose to hold that, to discard a major part of our identification. Maybe it is an identification you've held with your work, in your relationship, or a relationship, right? Or you recognize that specific people, places, things, it's not that they're just not working anymore. There's a quickening of, I can't even fathom how that fit 2 days ago. Because what starts to happen is our perspectives and the way that we're oriented starts to change very rapidly. And I know every time I've gone through these, and when I, talk with clients about them or friends, it's very disorienting and it's very confusing. The brain can feel very jumbled, and what made sense just, a day before or a week before no longer holds the same value, the same perception, the same need. It all just starts to get really wavy and shaky. I mean, that's what it feels like internally. So I'm talking from an embodied perspective. And from strictly a spiritual perspective, and how these kind of spiritual shift can feel in your internal landscape. So I kind of call it like a brain rattling, where my brain just starts to feel very discombobulated. My sense of self starts to feel very discombobulated. My sense of the reality within me, what I thought was real, what I held as my reality, and that might be, again, part of my personality, what I've really identified with, starts to crack apart. And this can look like getting headaches from that kind of confusion. It can look like, feeling really exhausted all of a sudden or for a couple days. It can look like, maybe just not feeling good in general and not being able to think straight, not being able to really navigate your life in the same way. And what I have found is the more that I try to cling on to whatever is trying to break me free, the harder it is, and the the more strenuous, right, on my thinking faculties and on my logic or on my rational faculties, because what's happening isn't logical and it's not rational. It is of the soul, and it is of a divine timing that has flipped on, that says, okay, it's all changing now. It's time to shift directions. It's time to shift perception. It's time to leave where you've been and move on to a whole new life, a whole new reality, a whole new timeline also is what we call this. So if you're going through tower moments. And again, we're most likely going to see more of them moving forward, because all of life, and I mean that with the capital L, as a divine wisdom, and as in a divine knowing. All of life is ushering all of us in our own unique ways into new ways of living life, perceiving how our life should be, experiencing what is really true for us and what isn't anymore. And when that happens, it can feel really overwhelming. It can feel rattling. It can feel scary, particularly if you don't know what it is, which is another reason why I think it's important to talk about these embodied experiences, right? These embodied happenings and these embodied events that, without going through them before, or without actually being able to connect the dots, then it's harder to actually move forward in the way that the guidance is being laid out for us. So, in throughout my life and throughout my awakening journey and process, I can say that I've had probably, a good half dozen to a dozen of the ones that really just turn me inside out and upside down. And I feel like this is this is another one, but this is my second one this year. So right as I felt like I was starting to find my footing again and come out of the dizziness of the spring, lo and behold, I guess we're not done yet. So the way that I want to separate this, I'm going to keep this relatively short, but the way that I want to just sort of categorize this for clearer understanding is that oftentimes this will happen when we're going through phases of deep karmic clearing, right? We're naturally and organically, we don't even have to know it, but we're shifting into a new level of ourselves. We're shifting into a deeper connection with our own soul presence, our own spiritual nature, even if we don't really know that's exactly what's taking place. If we don't have a context for it, it might just feel like, you're feeling really unstable and you don't really know how to talk about it or how to get support for it, and you kind of ride it out, and maybe you don't actually let go enough to really make the change that's attempting to come through you. So these are kind of more karmic moments where old timelines are dropping away rapidly in order to present a new reality for you. But that reality is going to have to shake out your old way that you held reality in order to bring in the new information and the new expression from the depth of your being. Okay? So the other way that we look at this is when we're consciously on the spiritual path and we are consciously recognizing when we need to make changes. When life is or when our soul presence is kind of starting to push us in a new direction, and we're making these shifts to align with our highest self, divinely align our will with a higher will, and we kind of know what's happening. And then sometimes these go smoothly and slowly. Other times we can activate the divine blueprint really fast in a way that the change happens rapidly. So the downloads come in rapidly, and what is being, let's just say, from deleted from the human computer that we are, that carries many files and programs that you know govern how we operate, how we look at things, right? Those can go through quickened phases, like I'm expressing and talking about right now, where they're deleted really fast, but there isn't time to catch up yet, right? So the deletions are happening really rapidly, and the new information isn't actually landing yet. So it requires a conscious continuation to just keep letting go, and trusting that what we're letting go of is no longer in our highest good. And keep opening up to receive, the inklings maybe that we're starting to see, but we don't really know how that's really going to work. It doesn't really make sense. How is that really going to play out? And really staying out of the logistics. So this is challenging if it's your first rodeo or two, to stay out of the logistics and try not to hang on again for control of what is being stripped away, and to just allow life to do what it's doing, to continue to bring in what is already written for you, right? What is already in your stars, you can say. It's already there for your highest good. Your soul already knows what your next, expression is meant to be. And my go-to for this is usually just sleep, because usually when I get in that foggy place, particularly during a tower moment, I just like take a time out. And when I go to sleep, when I go into rest, my subconscious has the wheel then, right? My soul and my subconscious have the wheel, and they're going to drive this vehicle, and I trust it to like get me to my next destination. And that next destination is probably going to be those next things that start making sense to my logic and my rationale. So I think that that's enough for right now. But I just wanted to bring this to the forefront too, because we're in the eclipse. We're in the whole eclipse portal, right? This is a big corridor that is all about, okay, so we're in the eclipse corridor. We're literally closing out, I think it's like 3 many year cycles of how life has operated and been, both individually and collectively. And all of those are closing out. We're closing out old timelines collectively and individually, and we're bringing in new cycles, with the beginning one being in November 19th. But until then, we're going through these eclipses right now that are just like ripping old ways, old personalities, old qualities, old wounds away from us, and creating the space for grace is what I call this. When we empty out, when old parts of us die away, when we go through these death processes of identity, of personality, of how we thought things were going to be, and now we're seeing that we have to let go of that. As these death processes take place, we're creating the space for grace. We're emptying out for all of the new information to enter in, to integrate, to guide us, to help us recalibrate, to get us more connected to our soul, to connect us more to our own higher levels, meaning our highest self and those aspects of soul that are operating in higher dimensional realities, which carry much more wisdom than than our limited thinking can even know. So we're going to be seeing a lot of this probably through the end of the year, and then as these new planets start shifting, I think it's just important to keep track, journal on the small changes and transitions, journal on the big ones, right? Keep a tab on what are those inklings that you're starting to feel when they're small, right? This isn't working anymore. I'm not feeling this anymore. This doesn't really align with me anymore. This isn't lifting me up into my fullest and highest expression anymore. So you want to be tracking those and doing what you can while they're manageable, right? While you're still in that window of the old ways aren't working, right? So I want things to be different, and then you start consciously doing that. And then also recognize that there may be these points in time where, the divine, the universe, God, life, whatever that is, it brings to us nothing that we can expect, because it's not for us to expect, it's just time. And boom, things are going to move through, and write everything, write what you're feeling and noticing through those stages as well, because it's probably not going to be the first or the last. And the more that you can get really clear and conscious with the possibilities of what's happening, and I'm just giving you, this perspective and this way of looking at these events to hopefully support you in recognizing what your truth is. Well, now I have a little, was that a wasp or a bee? It's a little wasp. He's carrying a little something. So, and then you want to do all the self-care that I've talked about in the other videos, having to do about, the solar flares, geostorms, how to ground, how to care for yourself, how to get connected, how to get embodied, all of these things that support the processes that we are going through, including the tower moments. So there you have it. I'm going to sign off now. And I would love, if anybody is experiencing tower moments or those shifts and changes, I'd love to hear about what you're going through, what you're noticing in the comments. Because when we share our experiences, we support everybody, because everybody's going to have their own way of seeing and perceiving and navigating, and it just becomes these reflections to help all of us know we're not alone, right? We're all doing this together, even if it's not, moment to moment, and even if we don't know each other personally. So I would love to hear any of those, and I am going to sign off for now. Have a lovely, and take care. Be well, and just listen within. All right.